بس once اللي انت يعني تقدر اللي انت تعرف تانكريس الاويرنس، لان هو ناس كتير طبعا ابتدت تتجه للتكنولوجيا بقوه، بس في نفس الوقت they lack the literacy itself، فاهم؟ فاحنا بنلعب من ناحيتين، احنا بنلعب as a payment service provider، وبنلعب كمان as people that trying to introduce the education part of how to use this technology and how to take advantage of. فاهم
I
قصدي؟
think it's a great opportunity بالنسبة لكم عامة الفترة دي.
احنا بدأنا يا حسام غالبا، يعني انت لو مستنينا احنا بدأنا انا واحمد خلاص.
انا بس كنت بظبط الدنيا، بطلع لايف على فيسبوك بظبط الحاجات.
ازيك يا حس، عامل ايه؟
ازيك يا احمد، اخبارك ايه؟ احنا we'll be doing this يعني both in English and in Arabic كده، ايه نعمل ميكس حلو
يعني.
I guess a lot of people will be joining.
لا تمام
as well. طيب
تمام. يعني بص انت يو ليد برضه بيست على الاودينس اللي موجود، فانت قول لنا، فاهم؟ فالوقت انت تحس ان احنا you need us to shift in English، قول لنا you need us to shift in Arabic، بس we're all yours يعني، فاهم؟
خلاص
بالظبط. وبعدين على فكره هاني عامل جو حلو جدا، ان الصوره اللي وراه عامه مديه ايحاء ان احنا قاعدين على البحر.
امال فاهم؟ انت لو تشوف الاوضه بقى، بقيه الاوضه هي فاهم عامل زي السجن الانفرادي، بس انا بحاول ان انا يعني ادخل نفسي في المود.
اوكي اوكي سو بنرحب بكل الناس اللي موجودين النهارده، سواء على الزوم لينك او سواء على الفيسبوك لايف. انا اسمي حسام محمود، بشتغل في باف SME GIZ Egypt project. احنا we work on financial sector development. We have 5 areas of intervention. نشتغل مع Central Bank of Egypt ومع Financial Regulatory Authority على policies ليها علاقه بالinnovation وفاينانشال inclusion. بنشتغل مع non-banking financial institutes على على المايكرو ليفل وعلى الميزو ليفل. بنشتغل مع على التوبيك بتاع ستارت اب فاينانس مع انجل انفسترز، فينشر كابيتال فيرمز، بزنس اكسلريتورز، وعندنا كومبوننت عن الاس ام اي انشورنس اند انشورنس ان جنرال. احنا دلوقتي في a series of webinars titled Egypt Fintech Dialogue. We'll be speaking about fintech in Egypt and shedding the light on the roles of startups, enablers, regulators, investors in financial technology in general, and the importance of financial technology specifically في الحتة بتاعت emerging markets. I'm super happy النهارده to be interviewing يعني two of my closest friends and partners, Hani from PayTabs and Ahmed El-Sherif from Rainmaking Innovation and Startup Bootcamp. قبل ما نبدأ في الأسئلة, I would like to thank our partners EFG EV, the accelerator program founded by EFG Hermes and Egypt Ventures, and thanks طبعا to Startup Bootcamp Fintech Cairo, the Fintech accelerator by the international brand Rainmaking. We would love this to be as interactive as possible, so we'll be asking a lot of questions. انتوا برضو as audience feel free to send us questions, and we برضو يعني you will find questions popping up كده, فبرضو جاوبوا عليها وساعدونا ايه this session تبقى as interactive as possible. First of all, هاني واحمد, يعني I will give you the mic. قولوا لنا بقى اكتر انتوا what do you do, what does your company do, how are you working you and your team now. هاني please.
هاني go ahead.
Sure. طيب let me start. خليني اقول اعرف بنفسي. انا هاني سليمان، للناس اللي ما تعرفنيش. انا I'm leading the expansion of one of the international fintechs هنا في مصر, PayTabs. It's a payment company. قبل كده I used to be the head of innovation and digital strategic alliance in CIB. Actually, I spent most of my career in CIB. I was lucky enough to spend like 12 years in CIB in different departments. كان innovation كان واحد منها, وقبليها كان ال SMEs, وقبل كده كنت في البرايفت بانكينج. فمتهيألي انا كنت محظوظ كمان في ال 12 سنه بتوع CIB اللي انا I jumped into the trendy business زي ما بيقولوا في كل فتره. يعني فالانفستمنت كانت was a big hype early يعني 2010, وبعد كده SMEs كانت طبعا the potential and the new trend business in Egypt في الفتره اللي هي 8 سنين او 10 سنين اللي فاتوا. And now innovation, no one is not talking about innovation and financial technology and how banks are trying to move to the next level. بنعمل ايه دلوقتي في الاوضاع اللي احنا فيها دي؟ Actually two weeks back we started testing working from home. قلنا برضو اللي احنا ايه نبتدي بدري شويه ونشوف اذا كانت working from home would be convenient لينا ولا لا. وده مش في مصر بس, حتى globally it was a global practice that we decided to go for. طمنا ان كل حاجه ماشيه تمام, working from home is convenient. الحاجات related بالتكنيكاليتيز what sort of tools we're going to be using عشان نقدر نكوميونيكيت مع بعض. It's working fine. I would say ان هي so far so good. It's not bad. يمكن بس هي عيبها الوحيد ان هو طبعا طول ما انت شغال من البيت فانت ما عندكش مواعيد شغل، فهو it's endless. يعني انا دلوقتي بقيت بستنى الويك اند اكتر ما كنت بستناه وانا كنت بروح مكتبي كل يوم صراحه يعني. فاهم؟ ما بين بقى اللابتوب والتليفون وبتاع it's endless working hours. فغير كده it's we're trying to keep يعني ourselves more productive and we're trying to keep the communication going as much as we can. يمكن من الحاجه اللطيفه اللي احنا بنعملها دلوقتي حتى هنا locally globally we do that every once in a while. We have our weekly call so we get ourselves اولا يعني ونشوف كل بلد اللي بيحصل فيها and we try to share الترايل and errors اللي كل واحد بيعملها ف we can share it with other colleagues in other countries. ولوكالي بنعملها on a daily basis. We have our catch up call on a daily basis بتبقى by end of every day. واحد بنطمن على بعض وده اهم من كل حاجه، فكل واحد بيبص الدنيا اخبارها ايه، الشباب متعايشه ازاي مع العيال ومع البيت. واثنين we do the catch up on our tasks. so كل التاسك اللي احنا بنشتغل عليها والمايلستونز اللي احنا شغالين عليها كل واحد بيتاكد ان هو ماشي في التراك الصح وطبعا بيكومبلمنت اللي الثاني بيعمله. I believe that's how we're trying to survive within the COVID-19.
Perfect. Thank you so much يا هاني. احمد الدنيا عندكم عامله ايه؟
I like how هاني portrayed it عشان الجزء الإنساني مهم جدا ويتعبر عنه يعني دلوقتي. ف let me برضو give a brief about myself. أنا أحمد الشريف. and I represent the Egyptian unit بتاعت شركة اسمها Rainmaking Innovation. Rainmaking Innovation أصلاً is a global corporate innovation and venture building studio. احنا تخصصنا is partnering with corporates, venture capital firms, governments towards helping them define their innovation needs and their opportunities for the future. وبنطلع عن طريقها بقى we implement the necessary innovation programs and acceleration programs المطلوبة that can help them either drive innovation externally with startups and scale-ups يعملوا pilots ويخلقوا solutions مع startups and entrepreneurs. وعلى الناحية الثانية internal innovation which is helping them internally figure out how they can become more competitive as a business and implement the strategies towards innovation for the future. Rainmaking Innovation happens to own Startupbootcamp. Startupbootcamp is a global network of accelerators that are industry focused. And it happens to be in أكبر vertical عندنا globally is the Fintech one. This was Rainmaking's debut في مصر. احنا لما دخلنا مصر دخلنا بالفinTech accelerator بتاعنا، ولما دخلنا في وقت where we believed in this is the right time to start investing in fintech and start partnering with the financial and the banking sector. سواء يعني definitely the banking and non-banking financial services to start بقى leveraging the opportunity towards fintech and the innovation that comes with it. الباكجراوند بتاعي أنا over the past 10 years I've spent most of my time working in the innovation field, working with entrepreneurs, working in a couple of startups. I had one of my greatest experiences can working with Flat 6 Labs. This is when I got introduced very expensively to the entrepreneurship ecosystem في مصر, working with startups and being exposed to everything that comes with it. يعني ومن هنا بقى as a result of that I was able to move to Startupbootcamp and Rainmaking. دلوقتي currently how are things being managed? Very similar to Hani as well. احنا كلنا دلوقتي بنشتغل من البيت, واكتشفنا ان لما الواحد بيشتغل من البيت وبيتحط قدام الامر الواقع وبيلاقي ان دلوقتي given ان في crisis وفي impact جامد على البيزنس environment دلوقتي والايكونومي, وgiven ان انت خلاص you have to make the best out of it and be resourceful, وخلاص انت قاعد في البيت وما بتتنقلش كتير, بتكتشف ان انت ممكن تبقى much more productive than you were اصلا. يعني الوقت اللي the amount of time that you spend, ده انا بالنسبه لي انا شخصيا يعني the amount of time that you spend commuting and going from place to place خلاص يعني اتعوض في ان انت قاعد في البيت, قاعد في مكان مركز and most of your work is being done through calls and online meetings. والدرجه كبيره the biggest challenge is not in that. The biggest personal challenge for me زي ما هاني ايه بالظبط، ان هو انت بتصحى كل يوم على نفس النمط بالظبط وبتشوف نفس الحاجه بالظبط، والبيت بقى هو الشغل وبقى هو كل حاجه يعني. ف this is one of the biggest challenges يعني. فلما بحب اغير سينري كده ممكن اروح الليفنج روم شويه، ممكن اطلع البلكونه، فاهم يعني. every once in a while كده بنغير الطريقه اللي احنا قاعدين بيها في البيت يعني، بنهيئ المكان بطريقه مختلفه يعني. وطبعا on the front of the business it makes you realize or not realize, but to be very honest, innovation, startup engagement with the opportunities that come with it بالنسبه للكوربريتس كتير وبالنسبه للبيجر برايفت سيكتور والبزنس انفايرمنت it's a nice to have. هم لسه لغايه النهارده في مصر وفي حتت كتير جدا بره مصر شايفين ان لسه الكلام ده ما اثبتش الار او اي بتاعه او النيد بتاعه يعني كفايه. فطبعا لما تتحط في موقف زي ده you realize ان the challenge multiplies. ودلوقتي a very big part of what we're doing now is that التيم كله بيشتغل مع بعض على figuring out how can we stay relevant, how can we add value to our clients and how can we add value to our prospects. مش مجرد ان احنا نلمع لهم الفكره، لا مجرد ان هو really if this is the time, if there is ever a time for innovation then the right time is now. But it's not just a slogan. هو الفكره في ان what we're working on دلوقتي is how we can really link the value of innovation and startups to the core business and the bottom line of a company, and how can it add value to its عن طريق either cost savings or increasing revenues. And this is the narrative that we're all trying to use دلوقتي أو يعني expand دلوقتي.
Okay, sounds perfect. Thank you so much, Ahmed and Hani, for the introduction. I guess now we will move completely to English because we have a lot of people visiting us from outside Egypt.
Sure.
Ahmed, I want to ask you about because I know many people might have not know what exactly is fintech. So it's a buzzword. Everyone is speaking about fintech, regulation, fintech, investment in fintech. But do you mind telling us more about what is fintech, what areas of disruption that fintech is doing in the market, in the financial market?
Sure, and I think I would like to give the chance as well to Hani to give his perspective. From my perspective, I would look at it from the Egyptian economy's scope, which is we all know that over 67% of the adult population in Egypt is unbanked. So it's very clear that there is a huge opportunity for financial inclusion. And given, if you would have heard the Central Bank of Egypt's governor 2 days ago, there is a statistic that says there are over 21 million consumers working with the banking sector. And it's not even, which means that with a country of 100 million people population, we did not even scratch the surface of 30% financial inclusion. So with that in mind, my definition of fintech is, it's anything that is technologically enabled. It's basically using the latest in technology to partner with the financial services sector to enable them to diversify and enhance the way they serve the economy or serve their customer base. And on top of that, the beauty of it in Egypt is that it has a double bottom line. The other bottom line is it enables the role of fintech in adding value to financial services and enabling them to adopt technology helps them as well enhance the livelihood and the economic state of society. So fintech is everything that is technologically enabled to basically leverage the competitiveness and leverage the strength of the financial services sector to enable them to come up with more diversified and more effective and more widespread services for the bigger society as a whole.
Okay. So Hani, moving to you, I would like Ahmed give us an info about financial technology in general. Would you like to tell us how financial technology can affect an emerging market, and what exactly in the financial service market that Ahmed was talking about can be the most affected by fintechs in emerging markets?
Sure. Let me start first by adding to Ahmed from the banking side or the banking perspective. So how fintech, it's actually an answer for both the questions. So your question onto how fintech can affect the market, or the emerging market, how it could, or it will have a great impact in the emerging market. And the other side, so what is financial technology and how actually the financial industry trying to capitalize on that to increase their reach out and to actually achieve financial inclusion with lowering the cost to serve and lowering the investment that could be injected into the infrastructure to achieve that. So basically, what banks are trying to do right now, since Ahmed was talking about the statistics of the bank compared to versus the unbanked in Egypt, and banks right now, they're having financial inclusion on top of their agendas, and it's on the top of the government agenda. Banks are now trying to increase the level of reach out and how to introduce several services and products and financial services to the unbanked. Given the limitation that we're having nowadays in terms of the number of branches or the number of channels that we're having right now to serve the current population, it's kind of impossible. That's why the banking industry had to leverage and capitalize on financial technology to be able to serve the unbanked segment. And I believe that was the entry point, not only for Egypt, for many countries, to start introducing financial technology and to start even introducing technology itself to better serve the market. From here, I would say that fintech, before getting into the sectors or actually what sort of fintech capabilities needed, I would say, so fintech is now positioned in the market as one of the main pillars to achieve financial inclusion. And just to change the perception of financial inclusion, because financial inclusion is not only about selling credit cards or loans. So actually financial inclusion is more about, I would put it, it's not only about making people bankable, it's more about solving the daily challenges and solving the daily pain points that people are experiencing in their daily basis, and having financial services as a back end to make it more affordable, or to make those daily services required more affordable and easy to have this kind of access to finance and other financial services to and using the right technology to do so. That's one side of positioning fintech in the market and how it actually helps into achieving financial technology. The other side, and maybe what we're passing through right now, it's a very strong proof of concept that fintech have made the self-isolation as much easier tasks, and have made the possibility of flattening the curve of the outbreak of COVID itself by using this kind of technology and using this kind of digital enablers to make things easier and to make things doable when in this kind of self-destining and self-isolating. Just imagine if we had this kind of crisis 10 years back. It would have been a nightmare. At least now in our places, we're actually able of, we have the capability and we have the ability of getting everything we need and paying it without even moving from our places. Now we can do a lot of banking transactions without even visiting the branches and without even moving or trying to spend any kind of effort, which is supporting the whole point of the self-isolation. The thing is, what sort of fintech is needed nowadays? On top of the list, I would say payments, I would say lending. We're going into a recession. Everybody's saying that. We're going into a downtrend, and we need capabilities or fintech technologies or fintech or financial technology solutions that would help and support a lot of economies to survive in this kind of crisis. So I would say lending, for example, I would say payments, other example, I would say KYC, and that's very important, which is I consider it as a fintech and a regtech at the same time. So bringing people on board, how to get them to use these kind of technologies, how to get them to use this kind of products. Those are the fintech capabilities that would be ranked on top of the list. And of course, I would say on the other side, the applications and solutions that more into trading, maybe more into portfolio management, and all these kind of things, we're not going to be cited as a priority for the time being, given all the markets are going through a downtrend. and this will be, I would say, assided, at least in what we're passing through, and it might rise again in the future.
Okay, so we have a question here for the audience. What fintech areas of disruption do you think is most important for emerging markets? And I guess they agree with you. Most of the answers are towards payment and money transfer. But let me challenge your idea of that payment and cashless payment is on the rise nowadays because of the COVID-19, Hani. Because on the other hand, yes, people are now more tending towards paying through online ways, but also people are not paying too much now, because transactions are getting less nowadays. So what do you think is do you think that payment is rising because people are more using wallets and digital tools, or the transactions all over all over the world now is not happening like it was? So what do you think?
Well, I agree with you, but like the first part, I completely agree with you that people, they don't want to pay more, but now people are paying more in necessities. So, and for example, the what we've been witnessing and observing when it comes to grocery shopping, for example, that's crazy. That's something that wouldn't expect to happen in the past month. Even although that we're approaching Ramadan, which is actually, that's the peak of grocery shopping, what's happening right now is even triple or like 4 times or maybe more what we were expecting in terms of payments and accepting payments in that field. So people are paying more in some sectors and people are paying less in other sectors. I agree on that. But payments on the past, and that's based on what we've been seeing in the market, a lot of people on the on-ground and offline side from merchants are trying to convert their business online. A lot of merchants, we're seeing them now moving to approach a lot of marketplaces to have their goods and merchandise marketed through their marketplaces. And all of this is actually increasing the payment methodologies and increasing the number of transactions. Yet maybe it's not all going through payment gateways. Still, we're using a different payment acceptance methods, like QR, like POSs, but at your doorstep, like payment gateway. But people definitely, they're trying to go cashless in a way or another.
Thank you so much, Hani. So Ahmed, I know you deal with the startups like every day, and every single second. Because managing an fintech acceleration program and being responsible for rainmaking. So Hani said explicitly that payment is on the rise and it's flourishing. What about the other fintech sectors? What about lending? What about insurtech? What about regtech? What about digital banking? What do you think about those categories?
I'm definitely going to build up on Hani regarding that, because it goes without saying that definitely the biggest opportunity or the biggest volume lies in payment, given the population and given given the opportunity outside of Cairo and Alexandria, and the different customer segments that come with it. However, on top of that, on top of payment as an opportunity, there is more than that. In my opinion, Hani said it as well. There is a great opportunity in digital KYC, because this simplifies the interaction between the banks and their customers. And this goes back to as well the current conditions. I mean, if you look at the current crisis, or I don't know, I'm not sure if I would call it a crisis, but I would say the current conditions. The current conditions are also very linked, will show you a very big part of how our culture thinks and how our culture operates. And to a very big extent, the current conditions have enforced on us a certain method of adoption. And for as long as it's going to persist, there are the opportunities in payment, KYC, and definitely digital lending, and the different customer segments that come with it is where really the biggest volume of opportunity lies. Because as a result of the impact that is happening nowadays, at the end of the day, a very big part of the population does not have the luxury to work from home, and their livelihood depends on their day-to-day movement. So if they stay home, they don't get the chance. They don't get paid. They don't get the chance to make their wage. So a very big part of the upcoming opportunity, in my opinion, if I would look at the future, if I would look at what happens post COVID-19 potentially, is that yes, I do agree with Hani. There's going to be a very big opportunity, and correct me Hani if I'm wrong. There's going to be a very big opportunity in digital lending to diversify the opportunities for the different customer segments, which are the biggest customer segments in Egypt. And accompanied by that is going to be digital KYC, because you're going to want to accommodate these big volumes with a much better and a much more digitized channel of engagement with the customers. So on top of payment, in the long run, I do believe that the two biggest opportunities will be in the digital KYC and in digital lending. And of course comes with that the opportunity for RegTech and the opportunity for introducing technologies and APIs, the different technologies that can enable the banks and can enable the institutions to enhance the integration with third parties as well, to automate, to optimize their process. And as a result of that, there will be even a bigger opportunity in the startups or in the technologies that employ big data and predictive analytics and assessing and and assessing the way the data is being processed and aggregated, so that you can even come with better behavioral analysis and better scoring mechanisms in order to even come up with better lending products and better facilities for the bigger customer segment.
So to recap, payment, digital lending.
I'm sorry, Hussein, I just want to add to what Ahmed was saying, and that actually goes exactly with what you were saying. So you were saying that people will pay less. Yes, people want to keep their money right now, and because of the uncertainty that we're going through, and and I believe that might be one of the main reasons why people would go more for consumer lending solutions. For example, I'm just giving an example, to facilitate their needs on a daily basis. And the same on the other side when it comes to SMEs, because I believe those will be this segment will get the big hit. So availing any kind of access to finance to SMEs right now definitely will add value to them. And with the initiatives I know that we're going to talk about that, but with the initiatives been rolled to at least keep the liquidity with those companies nowadays, I believe this would help into keeping them surviving longer before the trend would pull them down. That's one side of what I wanted to add on what Ahmed was saying. The other side, or the other thing, is that as much as payment, I just noticed that you guys are having a poll as well, and I saw that payments are ranked #1. So as much as yes, payments, this is like the time for payments, but I want to tell you that payment companies will struggle and will suffer, because we're trying, and you might be noticing that a lot of payment companies started to waive their fees and waive their charges for the sake of bringing more customers and shifting more customers to their platforms and better serve them. So payment companies, for the coming at least quarter, I assume that there's a lot of money that payment companies will compromise for the sake of better serving merchants and trying to help merchants to go onto the online side and keep them survive within the current circumstances. Let's call it the current circumstances. Let's avoid being negative and calling it as a crisis, like Ahmed was saying. So at least to survive the current circumstance.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hani. So in the sake of the time, Ahmed, I'll be asking 2 questions in one question, because we had a lot of questions here. But the first question is about corporate startup engagement, and how do you see banks are dealing with, not only banks but financial institutions in general, dealing with fintech startups? Is it something that's really happening in Egypt, or that it's not really happening? And the second question is about investment. Do you think that during the current situation, does this encourage investor to invest more in fintechs, or is it something that will make me as an investor afraid of putting money in startups?
سؤال خطر
طيب جدا يعني لا هو بص هو there is a saying that I always like to remind myself of, which is especially when it comes to corporates. ما هو ما ينفعش يبقى باب النجار مخلع، يعني هو by that I mean I can't يعني in that case if I'm going to go to corporates and ask them to invest in startups, or not invest in startups, but I mean invest in startups as a vehicle for innovation and collaborate with startups and go knock on the doors of banks that have practically invented this sector in Egypt. And I don't have complete value propositions. I haven't done enough validation in the market. My solutions are very clunky and they are not attractive. And I really haven't digested enough the need from the bank or from the corporate partner. Then I'm really setting up myself for failure here. It's not always about whether corporates are open to innovation or not as well. It's this is my message to most startups, whether you're in the fintech sector or not. If you are expecting to secure the confidence of a corporate player in order to sign a well-desired contract that can give you the majority of the commercial traction that you're looking for, then you need to do your homework. Then you need to validate your market effectively. Then you need to go to them with a powerful solution, even if it's not a 100% launched solution, but a strong working prototype that has done enough traction in the market to present a use case to a corporate partner. My number one advice or my number one value when it comes to corporate startup engagement is get your house in order before going to any corporate player or before going to any bank. Make sure that you've done your homework, make sure that you've validated everything, make sure that you have a value proposition that is sexy enough for corporate partners to pay attention, so that they start discussing practicalities with you. Start discussing how they can make this work rather than objecting against the amount of gaps that you have in your solution. And looking on the optimistic end as well, I would say that let's look at it from a futuristic point of view, because Hani said something that is very critical. He said that a very big part of the payment service providers now will be struggling because they are waiving their fees. So it's very important to differentiate between the short-term response and the long-term opportunity. The long-term opportunity, in my opinion, lies in that maybe within the next 4 to 6 months, as a result of the response that the banking sector has adopted to the market and the payment service providers as well have adopted, in the case of Hani, for example, within the next 6 months, there might be a burst of digital transformation appetite. A very big part of the corporate market, or maybe at least the banking sector, would be interested to explore structured digital transformation. And this is going to be my message to any startup that is either in the process of coming up with a new product, with a new fintech product, or an existing one, or a scale-up that is willing to diversify its product. Think towards the future. Think about, how can I prepare myself? How can I enable myself to be ready and to digest the needs from now, so that when the right time comes, I would be in a position where I can have a strategic dialogue with a bank or with a corporate player, and I can get my first mover advantage. And this comes as well with its channels. You can go to, there are also the platforms that can support you. There's Startupbootcamp, there's Flat 6 Labs, there's AUC Venture Lab, there's EFG EV, and there's Fintech Galaxy. All of those are platforms, and each and every single one of them has its own secret sauce that can help you make your business model more competitive and stronger in the market. So, okay. So this is my message when it comes to corporate startup engagement.
Yes. And again, Hussein, when it comes to investment, it's this is a big issue, and I'm going to answer that wearing my angel investment hat. It depends. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the size of the company. It depends on the stage where the company is at the moment, whether it's pre-seed or seed, or actually it's a high growth. So there's a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. And definitely when it comes even to valuation of the company itself, I believe there's a lot of companies that have to revisit their valuation nowadays, because it's completely won't actually be attractive for investment at the time being, given that they're evaluating the company with the previous situation, the previous circumstances. That's completely won't work now right now. And again, like when we're talking about individuals, they're trying to keep money in their pockets. I believe investors are actually doing the same. They're trying to keep money in their pockets unless they find a really great opportunity that's actually relevant to what's happening right now, and they would go and step in. Other than that, no. Me myself, I would bring it down a little bit when it comes to investment till I see how things will be going in the soon future.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would add to Hani as well that when it comes to investments and when it comes to investors and VCs, I do believe that maybe this is not, from my opinion, maybe this is not the right time to aggressively invest now, but it's the right time to scan the market and see how things are going to evolve. And on top of that as well, most of the I would believe that most investors would be focusing more on how can they support their current existing portfolio, and ensure that the current existing portfolio can effectively respond to the current state of play, and which is where the silver lining lies, specifically for fintech. Again, same goes for investors. Within the next 4 to 6 to maybe 8 to 9 months, I would say any business won't start. Things won't start getting clearer before, I would say, the end of towards Q4, and by then, especially in fintech, I think this is when we will see how the market and the sector is going to start pivoting. Is it really going to start pivoting towards a more aggressive digital transformation agenda, or is it going to be more conservative? Both scenarios are going to have their ups and downs.
Agree.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Hanging out to you and on the topic of regulation. So tell us more about the regulation landscape in Egypt towards fintech. So are you satisfied, not satisfied about how regulation we have now for fintechs? And tell us specifically about the regulation that was published to tackle the COVID-19 situation. How do you think those regulation as well?
Okay.
السؤال دلع ده.
ده سؤال جميل وممكن يزعل ناس كتير مننا. بس let's take it step by step. So first of all, let's talk about the regulators. So because a lot of people, when we talk about fintech or we talk about financial technology or anything related to the financial industry, we always think of CBE. Well, I believe it's not only CBE. I believe that the whole, like the entire regulators in the market are now playing a very important role. Not only regardless the current situation, I'm saying about even the previous phase, what they've been trying to do, whether CBE, whether FRA, whether even the NTRA are playing a very important role in that. The three of them during the past 3 years, they came up with several initiatives, several circulars, and several regulations and guidelines to help financial technology and to help payment companies and even people into the agent banking model to start introducing their services in the market. Taking each one of them or talking about each one of them, CBE, for example, a few years back, they started introducing the regulations for the mobile payments and introducing wallets in 2015, I believe 2016, and that was the first point into introducing a new channel to serve the unbanked, other than the banking accounts or the standard banking accounts. And now I believe it started to evolve. Even in this situation, we saw in couple of weeks, or actually last week, the new regulations introduced by CBE into increasing the limits for the wallets. The wallets have been in the market for the past 3-4 years, yet we have reached 13 million wallet in the market in 4 years. And believe it or not, when it comes to banking accounts, we have around 20 millions that have been there during the past 50 or maybe more than 50 years. We're trying to get this number. So we have 13 or 15, almost 15 million wallets in few years. That's actually an impressive achievement. Yet we've been suffering from the low activity rate. And one of the important regulation or one of the important circular that the CBE introduced in the market is trying to introduce new use case. When it comes to financial services, it's not only about introducing a product, it's about introducing a product that serves a use case in the market. So as much as the wallet was a game changer in the market, introducing several use cases like bill payments, P2P, yet I believe CBE saw and observed that they need to introduce more use cases to help increase the activity of those wallets. And that's why QR code came in the market. QR code will help into accepting payments from the lower segments, or having a tool introduced to the lower segments, starting from the micro businesses and small businesses, to accept payments from people that holds wallets in the market. And increasing the limit of the wallets will help to even facilitate a lot of other use cases as well, like payroll, for example, from one side. Now, one of the things that CBE has introduced as well in the last circular is the interoperability between accounts and wallets. So corporate and people that holds accounts, standard banking accounts, can now transfer money to wallets in the market. And that would help massively any corporate to support their employees that were not going to be able to open accounts in the bank, to have this kind of tool, whether wallet or a prepaid card, where they can accept their wages and they can accept their payments and a lot of things. So yes, this is from CBE, for example. CBE, I would like to give them the credit for the fast and the prompt action that they took to help people act easier or make their life easier when it comes to financial transactions. Yes. And on the other side, of course, I would say FRA are doing the same, NTRA are doing the same. NTRA, few years back, they introduced even flexibility in payments, and a lot of people might not know that, but we have the DCB model, direct carrier billing, where a lot of players in the market are trying to use and to introduce. And one of the top players, I believe, TPay, we shared the panel discussion earlier, and Noah shared with us, Sahar shared with us what they've been doing in the market and other markets into facilitating payments through your phone bill or your phone credit to pay for many services. And with what we've been seeing right now, a lot of people are trying to subscribe into a lot of services like Netflix, Shahid, a lot of things that we started to need because of the self-isolation. So people are paying with these kind of payment methods. And when it comes to FRA, believe it or not, if we're talking about financial inclusion, I would say that financial inclusion should start coming from FRA, because FRA is actually looking after the microfinance business in Egypt. And microfinance business is actually serving more than 5 million unbanked in the country. So if we're talking about financial inclusion, if you're talking about introducing services that would help into availing or achieving financial inclusion, so FRA to introduce, and I believe they started to do that, they started to share with the MFIs that they have to start introducing different tools for disbursement and for collection of the lending products or the lending facilities they're providing to their clients. So the regulators are playing a very important role. They're taking it step by step just to make sure that they're coming up with the right rule or the right guideline that would help fintech or financial industry to go more digital and to more capitalize on tech. And at the same time, there's a control in a way or another from the regulator that things don't go out of control when it comes to security, when it comes to not only security from cybersecurity, but even security when it comes to securing people's money inside the financial industry. معلش لو طولت, but I just wanted to elaborate more on this because this is very, very, very important that people understand how the regulators are actually now going more agile than a lot of companies to make this happen nowadays.
Yes. Okay, so what about the regulation in the current COVID-19 situation بقى? Generally, central bank مش not explicitly fintech, but like generally, how do you see this is happening?
بص يعني I believe there's a lot of tracks, and I might be shared a couple of what they did in COVID-19, but CBE actually, they didn't only look at how to even only facilitate how people will transact, as much as they started to introduce a lot of rules and regulations to minimize the risk of getting, I would say, infected, or I would say, in self-supporting the distancing from one side. بالظبط كده. So from one side, they أولاً they ask all banks to start using and deploying the work from home methodology. So, and this is something I don't believe anyone been working in the banking industry that they have ever experienced or practiced such a thing. As a banker to work from home, it never happened. Never happened, at least in Egypt. It never happened. So this is something that the regulator himself started to ask banks to do, and most of the banks that I deal with, whether in business or even from our previous relationship as colleagues, now they brought down the number of employees and within the premises down to 35%, if not lower. So that's one side of what the regulator are trying to do. The other side is how we can keep things running, the continuity of the financial industry within the current circumstances, and there's a lot of things that they introduced to easiness the process of onboarding people to the alternative channels. I would say internet banking from the individual side, corporate to have corporate platforms so they can do their transfers, their payroll, even when it comes to the most advanced tools needed or sophisticated tools needed, like trade finance, for example. So the onboarding of these kind of tools is more easier than before. And of course, when it comes to the payments and the wallets, and we just explained that, increasing the limits, trying to have less interaction with when it comes to human interaction, activating the contactless in higher limits as well. So now you can use the tap and go. And if we go forward, I believe there's a lot of new tools will be introduced in the market for the sake of making things easier and less riskier to convert from cash, dealing with cash, to cashless, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Hani. I'm now looking into a lot of questions from the audience. I'll start with, okay, where are the top drivers? Okay. So someone, Mariam, was asking about female-led fintech startups in Egypt. This is for you, Ahmed, by running an acceleration program. Why do you think that we don't see a lot of female entrepreneurs leading fintech startups?
Why don't we see enough female entrepreneurs leading fintech startups? I'm not the best person to ask this question. الصراحة علشان it's very hard to figure out why at this point. يعني ما اقدرش اديك one definitive answer. Number one, there's on one end, as an accelerator, we accept competent founders. So there is no difference between female or male بالنسبة لنا.
Okay.
If it's a competent founder, then they get accepted. If they're not a competent founder, in our opinion, or if they don't qualify, then we ask them to go further work on their business model and enhance it, and then come back.
Okay.
Just like every other accelerator or program in the country.
Okay.
Let's be fair, والله يعني from what we've been seeing, we saw a lot of companies, let's say not led by females, but they're definitely they're contributing to this sector. I've met a lot of startups in the fintech field, and I believe that if not more than 50% of their employees are actually females. and they're contributing. They're having a good contribution and presence in the field. They might not be leading the companies, but definitely they're part of it.
Agreed. Ahmed, another question about the how startup founders, fintech startup founders should behave in the current situation. What are your advice for them?
Definitely to all fintech startup founders, I would definitely urge most fintech startup founders to think, to have a futuristic outlook. There are a lot of initiatives that have been taken in the current conditions to facilitate cashless payment, to facilitate the way people transact, and to protect, زي ما هاني قال كده, to protect people from the spreading of the virus. This comes with a certain futuristic opportunity as well, which يعني إلى حد ما the coronavirus in a way kind of accelerated our opportunity towards increased digital adoption, and with that there is an opportunity in digital acceptance. There is an opportunity in mobile payment. There is an opportunity in digital lending, and of course there is an opportunity in consumer banking and all the customer segments that come with it. I would urge them to do two things. If you currently have a fintech startup that is navigating the current conditions, then it makes a lot of sense that you respond in the way that Hani mentioned, which is how can you ensure that you are keeping your customer, that you serve your customer segment in the best way, and enable better services and enable your services in a better way. But there is also the prospect of start thinking of what happens next. Start figuring out or start digesting how the banks are going to react. Start learning more about how the banks are being impacted now. And on top of that, come and partner with the entities that have a direct communication, or the entities that see value in investing in you or in collaborating with you, entities like ourselves and the others that I mentioned previously. So that I believe that this is the right time, if you're a founder in his early stage, at the beginning of his journey, if you're a founder with a working prototype, founder with a product, a scale up with a product that needs to diversify, this is the right time that we can open the lines of communication together. And as I told you before, we wanted to wait until this webinar to announce that on the part of Startup Bootcamp, we are going to be launching it's more of a rainmaking initiative coupled with Startup Bootcamp. We're going to be launching an initiative that's called Amplify. The Amplify initiative is completely directed towards everyone who has a fintech idea or a fintech startup or a fintech product or a scale up, who is excited and who is interested to figure out how to develop new solutions and how to partner with the banking sector. We are going to be launching an initiative where they will be expected to fill an application, and then we see how we can roll up our sleeves with them and figure out how we can connect them with the banks and how we can enable them to digest the needs in the market now. So my advice will be, think futuristically, start working on preparing yourself for what happens after that, so that you can sharpen up a value proposition. And we are one of the entities that are going to help you do that. So it's about thinking post-COVID-19, not only in the short term, but in what can we actually bring on the table post-COVID-19 as a result of as Hani said, as a result of the regulatory initiatives that have been taken throughout the current situation, and how the banks have been responding, and the decisions that have been made by the banks as well in relation to their customer segments. And yeah, it's all about post-COVID-19. There is a clear opportunity.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Can't
so
agree more.
Amr is asking, if we now decided to digitize all the manual transaction that's happening in Egypt, do we have the needed infrastructure for such thing?
معلش, can we repeat the question? I'm sorry.
It's about the infrastructure.
The infrastructure of payment in Egypt. If we decided to digitize all the manual transaction, let's say in 3 months, will it be a problem?
دي بتاعتك انت بقى عمالي دي.
ما هو سؤال صعب. بص, let's agree on one thing. So the good thing is that the infrastructure, there's a lot of investment been actually injected in the infrastructure of Egypt, not only when it comes to the payment side, I would say when it comes to connectivity at the beginning. So I believe that the responsible parties in the country, they invested a lot of money in the infrastructure. They've been developing aggressively the infrastructure. Of course, it's not for what we've been going through right now, but for the future, as to adopt and to accommodate the requirements of the current population. So maybe that's the good side of it. Will the infrastructure adopt these kind of transactions if we said that it will go مثلا 5x or 10x? I'm not sure about that. Well, it's what we're passing through right now, and maybe I said that before in another talk, that we're actually stress testing our infrastructure. We're trying to see how things will be going forward. But at the same time, I believe that there's like some warning signals for people are looking after the infrastructure, that once we reach a certain level, they have to increase their pace to develop the infrastructure better, and they have to improve the infrastructure in a way that would accommodate this kind of increase or the level of increase, whether from transactions, whether from payments, whether from even I would say not only from the banking industry, from the telecommunication side, the internet side. There's a lot of things is actually leveraging and capitalizing in this infrastructure. This infrastructure is not only for payments. It's infrastructure that has different pillars, different sectors, depending on. So once we reach a level that these kind of services, or whoever is handling this kind of services, will reach to a warning signal that we need to move faster than the current pace, I believe we'll be in the safe side that would accept and would have this kind of foundation that would accept this huge numbers of payments that we will observe in the soon future. Hopefully, yani don't quote me on that, but hopefully from the other players that they're actually having this kind of plans and development plans to run fast if they reached the red zone of this kind of stress testing that we're passing through.
Okay. Hani Mahmoud El-Zuhairi is asking, any truth that banks will start utilizing IBAN in Egypt?
I'm out of the banking industry, Mahmoud. You should ask a banker on that. So I'm going. Well, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how banks will react into this. But if we're talking about IBAN, I would say if we're going through this kind of track, it's better to go on a parallel track and introduce blockchain, for example, to facilitate this kind of transactions on even a more advanced and a more I would say more secured, maybe to facilitate.
Maybe people who are listening does not know what is IBAN. Maybe you want to highlight أو حاجة.
Right. So the IBAN is actually one of the tools used, I believe, to facilitate transactions, especially cross-border, and it's similar to SWIFT. And it's faster, it's easier. I don't know, from cost perspective, is it like comparable to what we've been using right now? But what Mahmoud's asking, if it's not used actually in Egypt. We're using like more into SWIFT. So and locally we're using now the ACH, which is the clearinghouse. It's one of the tools that have been provided by EBC. It's the Egyptian company managing the local switch of Egypt. So if we're talking about that, I would say especially that Egypt started to take into consideration, for example, having the blockchain infrastructure to facilitate something like KYC. And if we're going to have this as a first step, I would say that it's better to use this function to facilitate payments or remittance going forward, rather than going to the IBAN or Swiss, etc., etc. And again, I would leave a banker to answer that. I'm out of this field خلاص. Ustaz Mahmoud.
Okay. So we have another question, Hani, from Ahmed El-Sherif, asking, if you are a bank, how can you gain a bigger market share and a higher usage of your digital services in the era of Corona? Did you hear the question? هاني.
ده هاني ولا احمد؟ سوري.
هاني، السؤال لهاني.
معلش انا كنت فاكر بتقول احمد، فسوري، ممكن تقوله تاني؟
اوكي طيب، لو if you are, how can you gain a bigger market share and higher use of your digital services in the era of Corona?
Awareness, my friend. Awareness. It's all about awareness. It's all about, I said that earlier, it's not only about introducing your product or marketing to or market your product, as much as the awareness and teaching people how to use your service. A lot of people now believe it in different levels and in different education levels. They and you can't imagine, a lot of my friends are calling me to ask me how they can pay online. People are like very, very sophisticated and very tech savvy, but still they don't know how to use their credit card, and what's the difference between apps that use tokenization and one-time use of credit cards, and how they can use payment gateways for ordering, and regardless, even the payments and the fintech, even using a lot of other applications to facilitate their daily needs. When it comes to, a lot of my friends are using me how to use several platforms for e-learning and e-education. If not for them, at least for their kids, because they're receiving a lot of homework that they have to do from the schools or from the training centers that they're part of. So it's all about awareness. It's all about how you can put your product in a way that's very much easy to be used, and how you can come up with tools to your clients as a tutorial maybe, or as a marketing tool, or maybe as a very short video, and to help them to better use your service. So awareness, 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 that would be my tip.
Perfect. Ahmed, yani, I know this is not our topic, but there's a lot of people asking about blockchain. When will we see blockchain innovations in Egypt? Is it necessary for the time being? So what do you think about this?
لا هو يعني I'm going to keep it very simple. It's never about the technology. It's always about the need. So why do we? It's for anyone who wants to go into blockchain or wants to come up with a blockchain solution. I'm going to keep it very simple. Why are you doing blockchain? Why is there a need for it? Not طبعا the overall need of blockchain, but I mean, if you're developing a solution with blockchain technology, then what does this blockchain technology solution really serve? Well, what kind of need is it really serving? So I will always be urging startups or anyone with an idea like that to think about, what is it really the problem that you are solving? What is the real pain? And does the real pain need blockchain, or does it need something else? So always think from the market's perspective, always think from your consumers or your customers' perspective. I always believe in being in the thinking first of the value proposition, and then this is where the technology comes in. So don't fall into don't stumble into the pitfall of technology for the sake of technology, because blockchain is a very big buzzword nowadays. AI is a buzzword, big data is a buzzword. So it's always about, why are we employing blockchain? Are we towards what? What pain are we solving? This is the most important part. This is the most important piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions about a lot of topics. So يعني
I can see from the chat. I assume there's another chat on Facebook where you're receiving more questions. So I see many questions on the chat on Zoom as well.
Yes. Do we still have time? Yeah, do you have time يا جماعة if we got another?
You're the boss يا أستاذ حسام.
انت you're the captain.
احنا في البيت يا حبيبي. وداخلين على ويك اند، فيعني you're the boss.
طيب, Ahmed Amr is asking, is there any kind of support that the fintech ecosystem can give to startups in industries that was ruined due to the COVID-19? For example, the tourism sector?
It's definitely a very tough question to answer. And at this point, it's not now about how fintech can support. It's more of which industries have now. There are industries that have suffered the most, and there are industries that will get a positive burst from this in the immediate term. Yeah. And I would look at it from the perspective of it's not about how fintech can serve the tourism industry. It's more of what happened what kind of impact is the tourism industry going through, and what is the most important part of the tourism industry that needs support. So the tourism industry is heavily impacted because there is a lack of mobility. And the tourism industry, the tourism industry is, and on top of the tourism industry, the aviation as well. So this is where you need to focus your efforts on, not how fintech can serve the tourism industry per se. It's more of, if the tourism industry has been that severely impacted, then what are the most important core areas in the tourism industry that need support at this point?
Yes. Okay, so Hani, I know you mentioned a lot on the regulation side, but many people are asking, what kind of regulation do we need now for the current situation? So we know that the Central Bank of Egypt, FRA, and the regulators have been doing a great job, but do you have like a recommendation for needed regulation for the current moment?
Definitely, I would say eKYC. Definitely, I would say eKYC. Okay. We know that there's an initiative to introduce eKYC, but if we're really talking about achieving financial inclusion, and if we're really talking about adding flexibility on the onboarding of whether individuals or merchants to the financial technology solutions, definitely I would say it's about time now to come up with the eKYC rules and guidelines to help banks and other financial institutions to start adopting that and deploying that into their systems. So we're not going to be able of achieving financial inclusion and bringing like 50 million population or like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of merchants on board, and we're going to go after them to get their WIT signature for account opening and contracts or agreements. So this will not going to be possible. We're very, I believe, in need to get the KYC or the eKYC rules out. And on the other side, I would say, since we've been introducing many good guidelines and regulations to when it comes to the wallet, it's about time as well to start introducing acceptance or approval for banks and financial institutions to start introducing lending mechanism, saving mechanism on these tools, not only through accounts. So anyone we're going to be using a wallet, so they're going to be able to get access to finance through their wallets, or at least get interest on their balances on wallets, maybe insurance as well, etc., etc. It's a good channel to introduce many financial services, and I would say even many non-financial services through it, and will definitely get many customers increasing their activities only because of that. And give an example, maybe that's one of my favorite startups that I look up to. When I was in India, I had the honor to meet the founder of PayTM. And PayTM, believe it or not, when they started as a marketplace, selling everything else except financial services. And now they're a bank that already have around 200 or 300 million customers onboarded. So they didn't start from the financial services, they started the other way around. They started from what the customer need from appliances and goods, and maybe groceries, health requirements, education, trainings, and stuff like that. And then they introduce financial services. So financial, non-financial services, they're going to come together to better serve the unbanked if the CBE allowed, or if the regulator let's not only put CBE in this scope if the regulators allow these kind of services to come on top of the channels that we're using nowadays. And I want to say one thing, because I saw a couple of questions on the chat room over here. So someone was asking, what are the banks adopt blockchain in KYC? I would answer that it's a big project. It's a government project, and there, for the time being, there's like 3 or 4 banks involved. I know that Bank Masr, Al-Ahli, and CIB already involved in that practice, and I don't know who else joined, but when I used to be part of the project, I know that those 3 banks were part of the project. Amr Jdeed was saying that IBAN already is coming. Citibank already enrolled, and more banks are coming. I didn't know that, to be honest. So I know that IBAN was a topic been discussed many times, but we never saw it in the market. So if Citibank already deployed that, that's a good thing. And if banks will follow, that definitely will bring some value when it comes to remittance in the market.
Okay, so Hani, I want if you want to sum up or summarize what we spoke about today, and give like some recommendation for fintech startups and for the ecosystem in general, and tell people how to reach you in case they wanted you whether professionally or personally, if they wanted to ask any questions. Badi.
Sure. I don't want to repeat myself, but let me add to what we said. So to sum up, we mentioned what sort of fintech that having a great opportunity right now to rise. We talked about the regulator, and regulators are trying to create even more opportunities for this sector, for many for other sectors as well. I would go directly to the advice. My advice is you need to better know what's happening around when it comes to the financial industry. Please go through all the new circulars and regulations issued. This will help you a lot in many things, and that's one of the issues and the challenges that we've been facing. When I look, Yahsem, at the landscape that you published and the number of fintech startups that now in the market, believe me, 3 years or 4 years back, this same landscape, it will only have 2-3 companies. Saddani,
Yes.
you don't know what we've been passing through for the past 3-4 years to get financial capability or fintech capabilities here in Egypt. Even we had, when we were even thinking of investing in fintech at that time, we always were thinking of opening the opportunity for many international fintech to come in and to start introducing their services because of lack of fintech capabilities in Egypt. And I always was saying that the lack of fintech capabilities in Egypt came because of the lack of financial literacy. So if you have a good financial literacy, I assume that you will have a good opportunity in this market. So that's one thing. Collaboration is very important. I saw a lot of practices across the globe. Fintech companies are coming together, or like I would say, startups are coming together to introduce a collaboration model and many services to help into rising their companies in the current circumstances. So if you find a good opportunity to collaborate with other startup, other fintech, and you guys can come up together with a great proposition in the market, please go for it. Last thing is, banks are scouting for you guys. I was there. Me and my colleagues, we used to go everywhere. I believe that's how we got to know each other. We used to not miss any demo day, any accelerator program. We used to mentor everyone just to get the right capability, the right team to bring them on board and to start introducing them to our banking strategy and start incorporating them to our banking proposition as well. So just my tip, understand better what's happening in the space right now, especially in the local market. And believe me, nowadays it's a good opportunity for you to introduce many services. And I completely agree with Ahmed. Post-COVID is a new era for fintech and for many sectors. We're not going back to normal, that's true, but I'll put it in a positive way. We're going to introduce the new norm in the market.
Thank you so much, Hani. Ahmed, a final word, your advices to entrepreneurs and fintech startups, and how can people reach you?
طبعا adding to Hani, if you are a startup, think about what's next. Don't be reactive. Focus on try to understand what the current impact is, and figure out what is the best way to craft a new value proposition or adapt your existing one to the ongoing developments. It's 100% true. I do believe that things are not going back to normal, and I wouldn't predict that suddenly once once COVID-19 is over, everyone will go back to immediate again 100% business as usual. It's not that binary. It's not really that binary anymore. So within that lies a great opportunity for fintechs, and even bigger opportunities for fintechs that are thinking ahead, and the ones who are really listening to what's happening, who are scanning the available gaps and the opportunities in the market, will be set up for a significant amount of success. And adding to Hani as well, yes, the banking sector, or a significant part of the banking sector, is scouting for startups, and they want to be exposed to startups, and they want to work with startups as a means for external innovation. And by the way, it's not about acquisition or investment. It's also about creation of new revenue models, the creation of new cost-saving schemes. There is great opportunity when a great fintech value proposition meets a bank with a great innovation appetite. And the innovation appetite has been picking up in Egypt over the past 2 years really fast. And this is all thanks to the startup ecosystem and the players in the startup ecosystem that created that burst as well. So there is a very strong opportunity for intersection now, but we shouldn't take it for granted as well. It doesn't mean that it's a given, because again, when we take it for granted, it means that innovation is a nice to have. So it's important that we work together on creating a strong value proposition. And this goes back to, again, how would people reach us? Please visit our Facebook page. I'd be happy to share my contact and email info for anyone who is interested to send me an email and share their idea with me. And of course, on top of that, I will be sharing with you our link for the initiative that we are launching, because we do believe that there is a lot of value in creating value propositions for the future. And we're going to be distributing the link online so that anyone with a great fintech idea or an existing one or one that needs to scale can reach out to us. We're going to schedule calls. We're going to do some advisory work, and I wouldn't even call it advisory work. I would say collaboration work. We're going to put our heads together. We're going to leverage our capabilities, and we're going to leverage their capabilities and see how we can go to the market together and get the commercial traction needed. Because within the next 4 to 6 months, in my opinion, there will be a burst in the appetite of banks to engage with startups, and they will be seriously on the lookout. This is what I really do believe in.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you
from my side, because I forgot to share my contacts. I always check my LinkedIn. So anyone wants to reach me out, you can reach me out easily on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn profile is Hani O.Soliman, Hani with Y. If you need to ask about anything, please get in touch with me, and I'll be more than happy to help you out.
That's a good idea.
We'll be sharing the contact details of you both with all the attendees.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Please,
Ahmed, with a recap of what we spoke about today. Thank you so much, Hani, for being with us today. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ahmed. I'd also want to thank.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this great initiative, and thank you for bringing me with my friend Ahmed over here. That was
Habibi.
I really enjoyed it big time, and I hope the audience, this was insightful for them, and I hope that it was meeting at least their expectations.
Yes.
I want to thank برضو EFG EV, our partners, and Startup Bootcamp Fintech Cairo. And I'm very excited to announce that our next webinar, we will be having Mohammed Okesha, the founder and board member of Fawri. Will be speaking about his new fund and how he turned Fawri from a small startup into an IPO. I'm very, very excited to our meeting. See you guys next week.
Guys, you shouldn't miss that.
Yes, definitely.
This is a big one.
Ahmed, see you next week.
You shouldn't miss that.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you, Hassan. Take care. Thank you, Ahmed.
Enjoy your weekend.
وانتوا كمان.
اه
يلا باي باي.
باي.